It's Tuesday, December 22nd, and the time for your Barbados Today morning news update. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has confirmed the existence of a small cluster of positive COVID-19 cases originating at a St. James property. The unfolding events come less than 24 hours after the Health Minister, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic, spoke of potential developments relating to 14 recent cases. Subsequent investigations reveal that an alleged protocol breach at the West Coast property involving one of two UK visitors is at the root of the cluster. An emergency round of COVID-19 PCR tests relating to the troubling situation have all come back negative. However, the 26 persons tested have been ordered to continue to isolate as they await the outcome of a second sequence of testing. Our Kareem Smith has more.
In response to a number of questions from Barbados Today on Monday, Roy Morris, who is Press Secretary to Prime Minister Mia Mottley, after speaking with Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kenneth George, confirmed that over the past 3 to 4 days, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has been investigating a small cluster of positive COVID-19 cases at a West Coast property in St. James. According to Morris, it involved a number of persons who recently arrived from the United Kingdom, all of who arrived with negative PCR test results. On the second test, however, 2 of the individuals returned positive test results. The latest developments here, according to Morris, resulted in an immediate process of contact tracing and testing, after which the visitors, 2 children, tested positive, as well as an adult who came into the country with them from the UK. Thankfully, 26 other persons associated with the cluster, including all staff on the property, have tested negative. Nevertheless, out of an abundance of caution, all persons have been confined pending further testing. Sources close to the situation tell Barbados Today that one of the guests who was supposed to remain in self-quarantine had instead ventured to a small house party at a nearby property prior to receiving the result of their second test. When the test came back positive, the source noted that all staff members at both properties were asked to quarantine, some of them at home, and others at the St. Lucie District Hospital. It is still unclear if the visitors have brought with them the new variant of COVID-19 originating in the UK. The new strain is believed to be up to 70% more transmissible, and over the last few hours has resulted in harsher restrictions on mixing in England, Scotland, and Wales. Kareem Smith for Barbados Today.
Travelers to Barbados are being advised to expect some delays in getting back their COVID-19 results from the Best dos Santos Public Health Laboratory. Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kenneth George said this was partially due to an increase in visitors. He said although this was regrettable, the Ministry of Health and Wellness will make available all technical and support resources to ensure that services are uninterrupted and carried out in a timely manner. Dr. George noted that the laboratory was processing over 1,000 tests daily and officials were working to ensure accurate results were returned. He gave the assurance that the ministry was working diligently to clear the backlog. Owners of public service vehicles want transport board drivers who disobey the COVID-19 protocols to be taken off the road as well. Communications and Marketing Officer at the Alliance Owners of Public Transport, Mark Haynes, contends that it would be unfair for the COVID-19 monitoring unit to discipline PSV drivers and conductors but allow transport board drivers to get off scotch-free. His comments come on the heels of a report that a transport board driver was reported by the unit for not properly wearing his mask last Tuesday. However, while PSV operators have been pulled off the road for 7 days for a similar infraction, it was unclear whether the driver in question was disciplined.
I would think that if a PSV commits an infraction of this nature and he's penalized, the same should apply for the government. But notwithstanding that they may have internal discipline measures to take against him or her who is bus, the same unit should apply the same penalties to the transport board, because it would not be fair and equitable and reasonable to report the PSV sector and do not report the government-owned bus whose driver commits an infraction. The same should apply. So I do not think it augurs well for the image of the unit, of the COVID-19 monitoring unit, not to report the bus driver once he has committed an infraction.
Vendors operating along Fairchild Street are reporting slow sales just days before Christmas. Several of them told Barbados Today that in recent weeks they have barely been making what they describe as a few dollars and are hoping that residents will remember to support their small businesses. Here's what some had to say.
The sales has been slow so far, but today we find that things is picking up a little. But you can't complain, you gotta still give thanks, because the year was already I don't want to say disaster, but it was it was tough. So we still give thanks for what the little that God provide for us.
But right now it's slow. Today's Monday. I didn't look for this year though. I brace myself for this year. That one will burn the store. I'm buying a quality of something, but it's kind of our last day.
It really slow. Sometimes I sell $3. Yes, one day I sell $3 and my girlfriend tell me you only gotta get 50 cents to go home. Yes, whole day. The paper belongs to the nation. You gotta just put it trade it. These and all they sell slow. It's very slow. But Saturday gone, all I doing is sleeping. I gotta sell all the vegetables out there. Nothing selling.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from the region now. Hundreds of residents may have been exposed to the COVID-19 virus in Grenada following the discovery of a cluster at Sandals Resort. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, who made the announcement in an address to the nation last night, said vigorous testing was currently ongoing.
Through vigorous contact tracing efforts since the detection of the cluster, we have determined that more than 800 people have been possibly exposed to the virus, and as such, they have been tested and quarantined. A second round of testing will begin on Wednesday, December 23rd. The size of this cluster and the upward spiral recorded in recent days are quite concerning. But what is even more troubling is the likelihood of even more exposure of our citizens as you socialize during this festive season. The true extent of the crisis we face may still be unknown. Health officials have explained that based on the estimated window of exposure, many persons are possibly in the incubation stages of any potential infection.
As part of measures to curb the spike in cases, the Prime Minister also informed the nation that a curfew had gone into effect at 8 p.m. last night.
The nightly curfew will be lifted at 5 a.m. daily. It will remain in effect for 14 days in the first instance and encourage your full compliance. The curfew is intended to minimize the number of social gatherings that generally take place during the Christmas season. We have refrained from imposing a full lockdown in recognition of the religious beliefs at the heart of the season. And as a Christian society, and in acknowledgement of the fact that churches have consistently adopted the recommended protocols, we thought it important to allow our citizens the opportunity to participate in their religious traditions. That said, we call on all religious leaders to be very strict in implementing the COVID-19 protocols at your respective churches.
And finally, there is growing international alarm over a new variant of the coronavirus in the UK, with more than 40 countries imposing travel bans. More in this CBS News report.
If the goal was to contain the rapid spread of the new strain of coronavirus, then these travelers, crammed into one of London's train stations, desperate to get out of the city, wasn't helping. Britain has now ground to a halt just 2 days after it was revealed the variant of COVID-19 was spreading like wildfire. Hundreds of trucks at the busy Dover port now sit idle after France tightened its borders, raising real concerns over food shortages. The panic is now spreading across the globe, with more than 40 nations suspending flights from Britain, although not the US. So far, Americans can still travel from the UK to the United States without government restrictions. But with infections from the new strain of COVID-19 still shooting through the roof, and huge chunks of England's southeast now under strict lockdown, it's an uphill battle. The new strain was first detected in September. It now accounts for nearly 2/3 of all new transmissions across the UK. Infectious disease experts say that's because it contains mutations, which make it up to 70% more infectious than other strains.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.